It's important to be healthy because if you want to live a long life, then being healthy is the key to do that. And what goes into health is more than just nutrition, it's more than just food.
In a world where diet fads are more abundant than actual vegetables, finding the truth about health can feel like searching for a low-carb needle in a high-fat haystack. Well, we're here to sift through the heaps of misinformation and overcooked promises of diets to uncover what really nourishes our bodies. No detox tea is required, just a hearty appetite for the truth.
I don't think that most people right now feel healthy. I don't think that most people feel physically healthy. I don't think most people feel emotionally and mentally healthy.
It's important to eat healthy because we need to fuel our body with food that our body can actually use.
We think a lot about the medical side of things and the science side of things. Like, we should know so much. But the fact is that nutrition is really a young science if you're looking at just science as a whole.
It's progressing and it's evolving, but it's also individual and not one way fits all.
Some things and nutrition is very hard to study because in a typical random controlled trial, you're looking at an intervention and a placebo. So in a random control trial, you're looking at a placebo and you're looking at the intervention, and the people in the study, particularly if it's a double-blind study, they don't know what they're getting. But if you put an apple in front of somebody, they're getting an apple. So nutrition can actually be one of the most challenging things to study.
One of the big problems we have right now is that we try and be really dogmatic about something that's very simple, like eating. I think one of the important take-home messages should be that there's not one route to achieve health and prevention, and that it can be tailored to preferences and desires, and actually should be.
Why is health so important? Health is the foundation of our lives, enabling us to pursue our dreams, connect deeply with loved ones, and embrace life's adventures with energy and enthusiasm. It's not just about avoiding illness. It's about having the vitality to enjoy everyday moments and tackle challenges with resilience. Good health enhances our physical capabilities, mental clarity, and emotional well-being. It allows us to live life to the fullest, appreciating the simple pleasures and creating lasting memories. In essence, health is our most valuable asset, the key to a vibrant and fulfilling life.
But I do believe that if we are really honest with ourselves first, and we really are in tune with ourselves first, that we can identify the places in which we're not healthy. Sometimes they're fixes that we can solve for ourselves. Maybe we've relegated sleep and could benefit from getting 7 to 8 hours a night. That's an easy fix. Maybe we have started eating a lot of processed packaged foods and know that it would be in our favor if we had more fresh produce, for example. Sometimes maybe it's not an easy fix, or we can't put our finger on it. And in those instances, I really recommend that people seek out help.
I think that people view what healthy means in a lot of different ways. I mean, as a nutrition expert, I can look at somebody and know whether they're healthy. Now, they might not know if they're healthy or not. Being tired in the afternoon is not healthy. That's not normal. I think a lot of people view it as free of disease, but that's not really necessarily true. A lot of the diet over the last 20 or 30 years will add up, and you will have some kind of symptom related to unhealthy eating. But a lot of people chalk it up to, I'm just getting older. I have a beer belly. I'm just tired in the afternoon because I'm chasing my kids around all day. But those are signs and symptoms of not being healthy.
There's resources out there for all of the things that we need. Sometimes we feel ashamed. We have a huge culture of independence in the United States, going at it alone. Returning to community, and if you don't have that community, finding the resources that can help. And I believe in Western medicine. I believe in annual checkups and physicals and getting that feedback from a physician who can do a physical exam, who can do laboratories. So there's a lot of different ways of becoming healthy and seeking health. But in all instances, I think it really starts with one being really attuned and honest with themselves.
So this all seems really complicated. Can someone just tell me straight up how to be healthy?
When someone comes to me and they want to know, how do I get healthier? Or usually people are coming to me because they have specific complaints and things that they specifically want to change in terms of symptoms. It might be they feel chronically fatigued all the time, or they feel like they have brain fog all the time. So I work with a lot of women, so they'll use terms like mom brain, and they think, oh, well, people just tell me it's because I have kids now that I have this mom brain. But it really isn't about the kids.
Our bodies want to keep us comfortable. Even though they thrive to be in a state of homeostasis, they're also our protective mechanism. If our bodies want to keep us comfortable, guess what happens is it shuts down sometimes, and that's its only job, right? So it can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on really, on which aspect it's pulling us towards.
So typically the way that we start was like, okay, what are your goals? I do have clients that come to me and they just want a checkup. They feel pretty healthy, but they just kind of want to check up on things. So typically what we'll do is we'll say, okay, what are your health goals? What are the things that you want to accomplish through our work together? And then we usually will do some kind of laboratory analysis based on the things that they're specifically concerned about or want to check on. And, that could be anything from lab work like your doctor would order all the way up to doing what we call a NutriVal, which is a specific test from a specific company that looks at all kinds of different things. It looks at your omega-3 balances, your amino acids, your organic acids, and vitamins and nutrient levels, toxin levels of certain like heavy metals. The only thing it doesn't include is like a microbiome test. A lot of people come to me because they have gut problems and they want to find out what's going on in their microbiome that might be contributing to this. And so we take their goals and we take their family history, their current complaints, and their laboratory results, and then we kind of bring it all together and then make recommendations based on what direction we think that we need to go.
What about cholesterol?
We now know that actually eating foods that have cholesterol do not create high levels of cholesterol in your body. Your body actually produces cholesterol, and that's healthy. And we know that we actually need cholesterol. Cholesterol is part of our cell membranes that surround our cells. So the goal isn't really, we now know in this day and age, the goal is not to get your cholesterol to the lowest levels possible. We need cholesterol. We know that the brains of Alzheimer's patients have lower cholesterol than the brain of someone that is free of Alzheimer's. So we're starting to learn more and more that cholesterol is not an evil nutrient that we need to stay away from. And that really is a big misconception that the medical community is slowly catching up with and slowly starting to understand. But we know that eating cholesterol does not give us a heart attack. There are other risk factors involved in that lead to cardiovascular disease. I think that creating a large change in the medical community is very hard, and there is a huge low carbohydrate movement now that is really starting to come into the mainstream and kind of rock the boat in terms of what the dietary recommendations have been previously and really what the research is telling us now.
What are some misconceptions about weight and health?
Yeah, you can still be sick and be skinny. We call that, and there's a term that some people use in nutrition where you have a thin person who eats the standard American diet and they seem fine, but really their health isn't really that great even though they look skinny. Then you can have people who are in larger bodies and have perfect blood work, which is primarily what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at the size of their body because that can be impacted by genetics. And that's one of the mistakes that I feel like that conventional medicine and things like BMI make, is that we look at somebody who's in a larger body and we automatically decide they're unhealthy. And that is 100% not the case, ever.
So can someone just give me some straight up advice about dieting?
I consider myself a clean eater. I do follow a macro diet where I try to get my numbers exactly, and I don't count carbs or I don't count calories anymore. I did for a long time, and I figured out what I was doing wrong, and I was going the way with old school bodybuilding, and I found out I was really overeating on protein and undereating on carbs, because I'll say, oh, low carb, low carb, low carb, high protein. And bodybuilders, we really subscribe to that, and we just try to get all the protein that we can. But in reality, I was more moderate protein and higher carbs, because the carbs is what was giving me my energy in the gym. Or whenever I was running marathons, I need a lot of carbs to have that kind of energy. And I was finding that I was so out of whack, and I thought I was doing everything right. I was eating super high fiber, low carb, high protein, moderate fat, the good fats, and I thought I was doing everything right. Where once I actually drew it out, I was so far off.
Why?
It's such a weird thing to think, like you're taught these things like, oh, vegetarian is healthy, vegan is healthy, low carb is healthy, carbs are bad, or fat is bad, where what everybody's different. Everybody has different goals. Everybody has a different intake that they need. If you hit the gym a lot, then you need to eat more. For me, I'm mostly a clean eater, but I still like to eat. I still love pizza. I still love candy. I have a sweet tooth, but I do everything that I can in moderation, and that's why I recommend to everybody. Obviously, if you've gained a few pounds, then maybe you scale that back a little bit. Once you're at a healthy weight, you could start introducing these things a little bit more into it. I'm all for getting tacos if I want it. I've been super strict, and it's not a sustainable way of living. You're not happy. You're healthy, I guess, but it's just not something that I recommend. So for everybody out there, do your homework, figure out what you like to eat, what you like to cook, what you can afford, and then kind of tailor it to that. To tell somebody, you got to be a raw vegan, you've got to be keto, keto's the way. Everybody's different. So it's about figuring out what works for you, because every body is different as well. So there's this old saying that it's 80% diet, 20% in the gym to get built. And I'm gonna have to call BS on that, because I've eaten super clean, not gone to the gym, and I don't look as good. I don't feel as good. I've also hit the gym really hard, and then my diet slipped, and yes, I do look like crappier than I normally would, but for me, it's more of a 50-50. They both go hand in hand. So to just blanket statements, 80% diet, like, no, that's not true. Or you see all these fads that come out. It's like, stop doing cardio. Cardio is bad for you. You need to lift weights. Well, yes, I subscribe to lifting weights. Of course I lift weights, but I also need cardio. If I don't do cardio, then I get soft around the midsection, no matter how healthy I eat. People complain about their genes. They say, oh, my genes with that, I can't do it. I mean, I have an obese sister who says, oh, it's my genes. I was like, we have the same genes. And I used to be much heavier because I used to eat whatever I wanted. I ate a lot of fast food. And whenever I cut that out and I started watching what I did while still working out the same, my numbers were completely different. My body changed. I feel so much better. I'm as healthy as I have ever been, and the older that I'm getting, it's becoming more and more routine for me. So I'm just getting healthier. I'm way healthier than I was in my teens or in my 20s, and I have the same genes as my sister, and she's obese. So what does that tell you? It's all about lifestyle choices and what you do with it.
Well, what about hunger?
Hunger is so complicated, and food consumption is so complicated. Wanting food involves many things other than hunger. But if we want to just stick to hunger, our hunger or fullness is informed by a whole host of hormones that are released from different organ systems, from our pancreas, from our fat cells, from our gut. And basically all of these hormones that are basically little tiny chemical messengers will converge on the hypothalamus, small part of the brain, and will determine whether we're hungry or we're full. And these hormones are also dependent not only on your nutrient intake, but also on fat stores. So a lot of various things that are informing our hunger in terms of nutrient ingestion.
And I think that's what we have to think about is, the gut is much like our brain. And our brain has a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. And the conscious mind is enough time to remember a phone number. And the subconscious, is kind of all of those things that we do by habits. Same thing with the gut. The gut sees chocolate cake, it goes, I want that. It doesn't tell you right away, like, hey, a minute on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. It's not thinking with that mentality in that moment. And so our bodies, unfortunately, don't often tell us what the long-term results are going to be on the bad decisions that we make.
The interesting thing, though, is that the same way that these hormones or chemical messengers can fluctuate based on nutrient intake or food consumption, they can fluctuate based on other things, including our emotions. So studies have shown that when you are experiencing stress or difficult emotions, your hunger hormones literally go up. So your body is getting a signal for hunger, even if you are nutritionally replete. We know that sleep deprivation also increases hunger hormones, right? And so someone who really is hungry for sleep or needs more rest is now getting a signal that they are hungry for food. So the onus is really on us to discern our hunger, because we may just feel it as a pang in our gut. And if we don't take the time to really understand or acknowledge or discern what that signal is telling us, then we're going to go for food when really, in essence, we're hungry for something a lot deeper.
Yeah, weight and health are two very different things. There's people out there that are 15% body fat that are just absolutely clean bill of health all the way around. Then there's these fitness models or bodybuilders walking around 6% body fat that they're putting a strain on their organs. They're doing all these little things that are very detrimental. And just to have just the amount of what it takes, like the strain that it puts on your heart just to walk around with that kind of muscle, or the lack of body fat that whenever you really shred down.
We need to stop judging people by what they look like and start looking at how do they feel?
So I've gone through a major weight drop change of life twice in my life. The first time I was in high school and I shattered my leg and ended up being laid up for the better part of a year and a half, had 3 surgeries, and I gained a lot of weight. And then once the doctor cleared me, I was able to do all my activities and I dropped almost 75 pounds. And this was all in a year's time. It was my senior year of high school and it was a different world. It was to go from the chubby kid with a limp my junior year to just a regular guy that obviously I was maturing as well, but it was a completely different world. People treated me differently. People talked to me differently. It was such an adjustment to even hit that, and especially at that age. Because whenever you're at that age, your development is so important. As a teenager, you could go one way or the other. I had a lot of friends that turned to the drugs, or people that put on a little bit of weight and they're still overweight to this day because they've never learned or they've never dedicated themselves. And then whenever I was in my early 20s, I had another setback with my knee. I got out of the Marine Corps, so I wasn't as active as I was before, and the weight slowly came back on. So I ended up gaining about 30 pounds in my first 2 years out of the Marines. And it doesn't happen overnight. That's like a pound a month or whatever that is. And all of a sudden it adds up over years. You never just look in the mirror and you've gained 50 pounds, but 5 years go by, that's 10 pounds a year. That's less than a pound a month that you will put on. All of a sudden you look at yourself or you go to the doctor and they weigh you and it's a world of difference. And when I turned 24, I was back to the heaviest that I had ever been in my life from whenever I was a teenager. And I thought, never again. And I made the full change. I cut out fast food, and I still wasn't perfect. Looking back, I still had a lot more that I could have done, but I was making those changes. Just cutting out soda, I dropped 10 pounds in like a month and a half. Cutting out fast food, I dropped like 10 pounds over the next 3 months. And these changes that you do, all of a sudden you feel just so much better. You're so much more comfortable in your skin. And nothing beats the feeling of somebody saying like, wow, your face, like really trimmed down, or look at you, that's incredible. Where it's kind of funny because people love a comeback. They absolutely love weight loss. They love before and after pictures. You could have one person that has been the same weight since high school. Nobody cares. But to stay your same weight since high school, that is a true accomplishment. Where if you gained 100 pounds since high school, and then you lost 50, people be like, amazing, you're such an inspiration. You dropped 50 pounds. Well, really, you're still 50 pounds overweight, but it's this misconception of what it is and what is healthy. And to have those huge weight swings is much tougher. Now, I love a good before and after picture, somebody doing a big weight drop. That to me is inspiring. It shows you if they could do it, anybody could do it. But at the same time, I also want to be cool. Let's see how you look a year from now. And then another year from now, and then another year from now. If you could sustain that, that's the true goal. That is truly winning and conquering the weight loss journey.
We need to stop having someone come into a doctor's office and say, you have X condition and it's because you are overweight. Really what ends up happening with that too is that the people who are in larger bodies become afraid to go to the doctor. They become traumatized, in fact, by going to the doctor, rather than framing it as, oh, you have high cholesterol and your triglycerides are a little high and your blood pressure is a little higher than I want it to be. I know this nutritionist and I know that food has a lot to do with that. Let's see if we can partner up with them and work together to try to impact your health in a positive way. We don't need to talk about weight. We don't need weight to be a factor at all. We don't need to tell people that your BMI is super high. We don't need to be measuring that in that way. And there's a lot of study that's showing that BMI is inaccurate when it comes to people in larger bodies a lot of the time. You can get people who are just kind of husky because that's just genetically in their background. They're just larger people, but they're not actually obese. So there are mistakes when it comes to BMI. So I primarily look at it when I have someone who's underweight. Because with women especially, they could end up with hormone dysregulation. They can end up with a lot of problems. Anybody, not just women, but especially women. Because with women, we look at their menstrual cycle. Their menstrual cycle, we call it sort of their other vital sign. And so that's easier to see in a woman than in a man. But men even can get lower testosterone when they're underweight levels. And then they start to feel tired and fatigued and different things like that.
And if it's just I'm hungry, or I'm out and about and there's nothing else to eat, but there's a McDonald's, I had no choice, I had to eat. It's well, you do have a choice. You could have came prepared, you could have brought something, or you just don't eat it. But people don't want to hear that. They don't want to say, just don't. Have some discipline, have some willpower, just say no. Like that's such a tough thing to try to put on somebody. But at the same time, it's kind of the truth. It's I carry a protein bar in my pocket. I'm a dork. I know. But I've been out at the bars and everybody wants to go get hot dogs or whatever. Cause out here, I live in Los Angeles and every time you leave a bar, there's literally a person with a little cart or a little thing doing bacon wrapped hot dogs. Or it's 1 a.m. and you've had a couple drinks, that bacon wrapped hot dog smells really good. And you just see the sidewalks are just crowded with people eating street meat. And I know what it's going to do to me the next day. I know it's going to do to me in the moment. I'm probably going to get sick to my stomach. The next day I'm going to feel like crap. It's bad enough I just put alcohol into my system, but it just takes so much to resist, but you feel so good whenever you do.
And so what I recommend to my patients is to really try and pause. In that moment that you get that trigger or that signal for hunger. So maybe you're sitting in bed, it's 1 a.m, you're watching Netflix, and all of a sudden you get this urge to go into the pantry. What is that signal really signaling? Is it really a desire for food, or is it a desire for sleep? Or are you looking at your partner snoring next to you and it's a desire for connection? What is that hunger truly signaling? And I think when we can approach our hunger in that way, not only are we more mindful and intentional about our relationship with food, but we also become more intentional about the way we live our lives. We can use that hunger as a way to inform what it is that we're really missing, what it is that we're really itching for. And in that way, it can be such a potent, important, informative motivator towards changing things in our lives that are really meaningful, like how we're spending our time. Are we really fulfilled by our jobs? Are we really fulfilled by our relationships? These much bigger, much more existential questions that at the end of the day matter so much more than the number on the scale.
How's about a little advice on shopping for food?
So whenever I go to the grocery store, first thing that I hit is produce. I always do it, make sure to really stock up on that. I try to get at least 3 different kinds of greens because eating the same green every day is gonna burn you out. Eating the same anything is gonna burn you out. I can't do chicken and broccoli and rice every single day. Now, whenever I'm competing in bodybuilding or I'm trying to get absolutely shredded and I have to be a little extreme about it, I will go chicken, broccoli, rice. I will go salmon, sweet potato, and asparagus. For some reason, those are my go-tos that I could just eat over and over and over. But for my regular day-to-day life, I really try to fill it out with a lot of the cruciferous greens, get you some good roughage, because my problem is that I do work out a lot and I do require a lot of calories, but at the same time, I don't necessarily get full that easy. I could just continue to eat and eat and eat. So for me, portion control is a really big thing. And what I found, kind of the hack for that, is I add a lot more vegetables to my meal. Because by the time I have my carb and my protein, whichever that is, it's not a lot of food. Half a sweet potato and a piece of salmon is not a lot of food. I could just eat it and feel not even a dent. So if I fill it out and I end up eating a nice vegetable medley on top of that, and the whole rule of thirds or whatever it is, if half your plate is this and a quarter is that, everybody's a little different with it. But if you have the size of your fist for this and that, we've all seen those breakdowns, we've all seen those diagrams. And while I do prescribe to that, I get hunger, so I add a lot more vegetables to it. I eat broccoli every single day in one way or another, whether it's cooked, whether it's raw. If I'm needing a snack or I'm just not feeling full, I'll literally just eat broccoli. And it's, all right, I kind of feel full. Now, a lot of people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear eat broccoli when you're hungry, because that's terrible. Nobody really wants to do that. But again, if you find ways of introducing it into your food, whenever I eat pasta, again, I could eat a lot of pasta. I will chop up the broccoli real small, put it right in my pasta. I almost don't even notice that it's there.
So some of the farm-raised fish, our fish that are farm-raised, experience some runoff. So it is high in mercury. I still personally think that the benefits of eating fish far outweigh the mercury or some of the chemicals that could possibly be in there. Once again, if you can eat a wild fish that has been swimming in the ocean and not being raised in a farm-raised environment, that is going to be much healthier. So a wild-caught fish versus a farm-raised fish is always going to be healthier, but it's also more expensive.
There's this myth going around that healthier food is more expensive, way harder to eat, but really it's just a myth. If you go to the produce section at the grocery store, you will see that bananas, apples, they're like pennies on the dollar compared to what the actual junk food is. And once you learn how to cook it in a couple basic ways, it's not that hard. You could boil a potato, it's gonna be far healthier than the bag of potato chips, and it'll go a lot farther for a lot cheaper.
One thing when you're working with a nutritionist is it's sort of a continuum. It's not one of those things where you necessarily see a nutritionist one time and all your problems are solved. I have clients that I've worked with for 3 and 4 years because things come up in their life. All of a sudden they got sick or all of a sudden their life situation changed, like women going through different life phases, men going through different life phases. And the things that they learn and implement and the habits that they create take time. You don't go from eating a standard American diet to seeing a nutritionist once or twice to all of a sudden eating whole food diets. It's not like people can't do that.
Everybody is different. Every single person and the way that their body is, what your taste buds do, everybody is different. There is no diet that is for everybody. It's up to you to figure out what your body can handle, what you function on, what you could personally handle in your lifestyle to be able to prepare and eat every single day for essentially the rest of your life. So it's important for everybody to figure out what works best for you and your body.
So one of the things that I recommend is this meditation called Surf the Urge or Surf the Wave, where you kind of manage, you notice that craving, you allow it to happen, you tolerate it. And when you allow it to happen, you can also allow it to dissipate. It's a very powerful tool, not only in our cravings or desires for food, but really in any difficult situation or difficult emotion that we are experiencing.
So there are social implications for people who don't follow something to the letter. And even me as a nutritionist, when I go out and I'm like, I'm gonna get a burger, I'm going to In-N-Out today, and I'm gonna get my In-N-Out burger and my fries, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what would happen if a client saw me right now? Right? Would they judge me and think that I'm a bad nutritionist because I ate a burger and fries? But the reality is that's not my whole diet. I don't go eat burgers and fries all the time. But when I want one, damn it. So, I'm human just like everybody else.
Yeah, I remember whenever I was marathon training and I used to read it was like Runner's Guide, the magazine, and I was get little bits of info from everybody on it. And I would say, people write, what is your favorite recovery meal? I was like, oh, me? Oh, I get pizza afterwards. I ran a big run. I'm going to go get pizza. And I'm reading what all the elite runners are doing. They're like, oh, I eat my chicken and vegetables, and I eat a little bit of extra rice, or I have twice as much protein in my breakfast after my morning run. I'm like, oh. There is a way of doing that, and it does become kind of a reward system. And I think that's where a lot of people fall into a bad thing. They say, oh, I ran, I could eat whatever I want. Oh, I went to the gym, I could eat whatever I want. And then you tend to do that, or oh, I worked out yesterday, I'll be fine. Or I'll just do an extra lap tomorrow. That's one that people always say, I'll just spend a little bit extra time in the gym tomorrow. And they're almost treating it more of like a punishment. Like, oh, now you have to do time in the gym. It's like, well, it doesn't have to be a punishment. It doesn't have to be a reward. Like, if you see something and you really want to eat it, it's okay to eat it. Like, don't beat yourself up over it, or don't try to convince yourself that you'll make up for it at the gym tomorrow, because you're not gonna.
I think one of the bigger picture problems that we are experiencing as a society is that we've become intolerant of our emotions. We've become intolerant of our cravings and our desires. And why should we tolerate them, right? We've got Amazon. We can get our, I give an example in my Health Bite podcast of this woman in the carpool lane who had a hot pink beanie. I don't even look good in beanies, but I wanted one. So I went on my Amazon app and I ordered it right away. It came to my door the next morning. What happens when you crave a taquito? You go on to Uber Eats and you order it right away. What happens when the first episode of Ted Lasso ends on Apple TV? 3, 2, 1. You wait a merely 3 seconds and the next episode comes. We really don't need to tolerate anything anymore because everything is at our disposal. Super convenient, but also super destructive. Because we forget that we can be with difficulty without self-combusting, right? When we learn to tolerate that, then we learn to tolerate the inevitable stuff that comes our way. Financial crisis, pandemics, job losses, divorce, the difficult things that even the most controlled individual cannot control will unfortunately come our way. And when we learn that we can tolerate those difficulties, then we're able to navigate our lives in a way that is a lot more peaceful than when we automatically soothe.
I also have a problem with cheat days.
I think that cheat days were created as a way to make you not feel guilty because you wanted things you're not supposed to eat. Really, I don't think cheat days need to exist. I know why people have them, particularly in the fitness world, why people, do cheat days. It's like a psychological solution to an issue.
I used to be a big proponent of cheat days. I used to, whenever I was marathon training and eating pretty much 90% healthy all week long, I used to say, Sunday, can't wait, it's my cheat day. And on Sundays, whenever you're marathon running, you do your Sunday run, which is your long run. So that may be 20 miles. So I would run 20 miles first thing in the morning, and then I would go to like a breakfast buffet, eat like 4 plates of food, because I could justify it. I ran 20 miles, right? 4 plates of food. And then I would get a burger and fries for lunch. And then I would get ice cream at some point during the day, because I love ice cream. And then I would get pizza in the evening. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's my cheat day. It's fine. I will eat whatever I want. I will eat candy throughout the day. Doesn't matter. It's my cheat day. And then I actually ran the numbers on it. And I was eating between 7,000 and 8,000 calories a day whenever I was doing that. And even running 20 miles, the average person, for me, I was burning 140 calories per mile. So 20 miles is 2,800 calories, and I was eating 7,000 to make up for that 2,800 that I burned. Now, my normal caloric intake is about 3,000 a day, which is, kind of high for the average person. I don't recommend that to everybody, but 3,000 calories. So I would eat basically over twice what a normal would on a cheat day. So I had to bring that back. I had to say, okay, cheat meal. You get a cheat meal. You could eat that 2,000 calorie meal. You could eat the whole pizza, but stick to one meal. Don't do a day. A day is just ridiculous. It can get out of hand real quick.
If you are going to a party on a Thursday night and your cheat day's on Sunday and you want to have a cocktail, okay. You alone know the context of what you are eating and how you are eating. So really, I don't think that it's necessary to have a cheat day.
What is the history of nutrition? How did ancient civilizations understand the foods they ate? And how have those understandings evolved over time? From the earliest humans foraging for survival to the sophisticated dietary theories of ancient Greece and Rome, the journey of nutrition is rich and varied.
Yeah, I do know the history of nutrition. It goes back farther than we realize, back centuries, in fact. And, even Greek philosophers were talking about nutrition and food as medicine way back when, before we even knew what a vitamin was. The first vitamin wasn't even named until 1926. B1, thiamine, was the first vitamin that was ever named. And that was less than 100 years ago. So, and back then, when you started with, we started with thiamine, and then they started looking at the different vitamins individually. And particularly because there were a lot of single vitamin deficiency diseases. You think about beriberi, and you think about scurvy, for example. Vitamin is a vitamin C deficiency. So when they kind of worked on those things and started finding those things out and where do those things come from, and then they were able to give foods to people like citrus for sailors, for example, who were getting scurvy on ships, in order for them to kind of cure that thing. And then it turned into studying, like in the mid-1900s, then they're studying more about macronutrients like proteins and carbohydrates and fats. And that's when you see the studies with like Ansel Keys. And that's where we got the, anti-cholesterol and all of that kind of thing, towards like the 1960s and the 1950s. And then now, in modern day nutrition, now we're talking about things like how vitamins interact with different parts of our biochemistry, how they work together synergistically, how botanicals work along with vitamins, how certain drugs cause vitamin deficiencies and how those things work together. And then we moved into the microbiome.
Okay, what exactly is the microbiome?
So the microbiome is the balance of bacteria, mainly in your gut. So in your colon, in your small intestine, we have gut bacteria that sort of lives with us. And there can also be things like parasites and worms and fungus. Those are the things we don't really want to find. But the bacteria, we call them like sort of a good or balance of bacteria. So certain foods in the standard American diet, for example, like your processed sugars, might feed certain bacteria more than certain fibers from vegetables or fruits, let's say. And so we can end up growing more of that bacteria and end up with a bacterial imbalance. And so your gut has its own immune system, and that immune system affects our entire well-being, our entire body. And that's the thing that science is really starting to know and understand, is how much our gut, which is directly affected by what we're putting in our mouths, really does impact our entire body. It impacts our mental health. It impacts our whether or not you get an autoimmune disease, whether or not you can poop. Like, we don't talk about poop enough, really, honestly. I have clients who will say, oh, my doctor said it was normal for me to only poop once a week. No, it is not. No, it is not. You should be pooping 1 to 3 times a day. And if you are not, you need to see somebody who can help you with your microbiome or with your nutrition and your fiber intake. It is so critical for our overall health to have a good microbiome.
I also like actionable data. So yes, we can get our saliva tested. We can get our feces tested. We can get everything tested. But what are you going to do with this information when we don't have validated studies to show us or to inform us or guide us as to what we're going to do? I think it's a waste of resources. If it makes you feel good to have your poop studied and get your microbiome, more power to you. As a physician, do I recommend it? Absolutely not.
We know that our gut is our connection to the outer world. We also know that the gut itself has more synapses happening than a dog brain. It's very smart. Our stomachs, actually our gut, is absolutely very, very smart. Like I said, we have cravings. Well, where does that come from? It comes from our gut. It's telling us we need such and such to survive. So what we've come to find out is just that the gut is much more of a part of our survival, as much so as the brain. They go hand in hand.
When you're looking at a microbiome test result, we're looking at sort of a scale. So it's going to list all of the very well studied, very well understood bacterial names, and they're all like really ridiculously long Latin names. And each and every one of them can sort of have a different reaction in our body depending on if it's high or low, balanced, not balanced. And you have to look at it when you have one thing that's high. Well, is that really a problem? Well, it depends. What about this other thing over here? Is that out of balance too? So you want to look at all of these different criteria that are kind of coming out on this data. And when you kind of see the scale on where it lands, is it too high? Is it too low? Is it just right? It's very Goldilocks when it comes to some of this bacteria, where we really want it to be. So, and really the good labs that are doing it, you basically, you poop. It's not pretty and it's not fun, but it's really important. So you basically poop in a container that is usually provided for you by the lab, and it comes with a scoop that you put into what looks like a prescription medication bottle, and there might be some liquid in there. And then sometimes they'll have you put it in the refrigerator before you send it, and you send it off to the lab, usually overnight or 2 day or something like that. And then the lab gets it, and then they do the bacterial analysis as well as DNA analysis on what that bacteria is that's actually found there. And there are there's so many bacterial strains. There's so many bacterial strains that we are not aware of yet. We are still we're in our infancy when it comes to fully understanding the gut microbiome. You're going to see products of like protein breakdown and fat breakdown, and how those kind of look is going to tell you, are you digesting your fats? Are you digesting your proteins? Do you have enough raw materials and sort of juices in your stomach to break down your food properly? Because if you're not breaking down your food properly, you can't take up the nutrients. You can't absorb the nutrients. And there are certain key nutrients, things like magnesium and iron, that require really good quality stomach acid in order to take up those nutrients. So that's why it's critical to look at that. We're going to look at short chain fatty acids, because those things are the things that we look at in terms of the health of the colonocytes in the gut. We're going to see if there's parasites, worms, if there's overgrowth of fungal bacteria like candida, because candida can be super highly inflammatory, and we do not like to see that elevated in our clients. So it gives us a really big, broad view of sort of what's going on in somebody's health. The way that you get your microbiome tested is that you need to find a functional practitioner. That could be a functional medicine doctor, it could be a naturopathic doctor, it could be a certified nutrition specialist like myself, and we will send you a test kit at your house. You do it at home, so you don't have to go to a lab and poop in a bucket in a lab. You do it in the privacy of your own home, and you scoop it in, and then you drop it off at FedEx, all sealed in the package, ready to roll. And then usually about 3 weeks later, we get the results and go over that with you.
How can you test for good health?
There are basic labs that gives us basic information, and it's not, again, one size fits all. So for example, an overweight person with family history of heart disease may need to get a lipid panel, whereas a 12 or 16-year-old may not. So really is dependent on the individual.
There are what we call biomarkers of health. There are maybe 10 of them that we often use to gauge our health. That would be our cholesterol, that would be our insulin level, that would be something called a hemoglobin A1C, which tells us basically how much sugar we've been eating and how much sugar is adhering to our red blood cells. We have our glucose. What is your fasting glucose level? So we do have a battery of tests that will give you a very good snapshot of what your metabolic health is.
So here's the fun thing about functional testing right now. It is a newer science. There's still a lot of, particularly on the microbiome, there's a lot of research. I mean, it's going on decades now that they've been researching the microbiome. But medical schools on average take 17 years to catch up to some of the research. I don't know why, maybe because it's privately done. I'm not really sure why functional testing is kind of so much faster in the alternative space, and it's not so much in the medical space. But it is not uncommon for me to talk to a doctor and have them not know what test I've just done and what it means. It's not uncommon for them to dismiss something that a client asks them about as pseudoscience when they've never looked at the research. They just don't know about it. Or they've heard of it and someone else told them it was pseudoscience, but they've never researched it themselves. So we're kind of fighting against conventional medicine a lot when it comes to really the understanding of functional testing. Doctors are smart. Doctors know a lot of stuff, and then that's why there's specialties. Even nutritionists, we even have specialties, Some nutritionists specialize in pediatrics and some in lactation and nutrition, and others in the microbiome, like myself. So it's all very different, but doctors are the same way. And they know a lot about what they know because they went to medical school. But medical school doesn't teach them enough nutrition. And they're not taught functional stuff. A lot of doctors are starting to learn it on their own. And so the more progressive doctors are the ones who are going out there and are getting the training and are learning about it. But not all doctors have time for that, too. If you're a general practitioner and you're wall-to-wall patients, when do you have time to go look up functional medicine research and learn about, the GI testing or the organic acids testing, the amino acids testing, things like that? They don't have time. So that's why we need to be partnering with our medical professionals and looking at each other as subject matter experts in each and every one of our areas so that we can work together rather than being at odds with one another.
You used to need a prescription from a doctor to get some of these metabolic health tests, but now, luckily, there are online websites where you can actually order them yourself and you can fill it out, pay it. You have to pay out of pocket. That's the only issue, is that your insurance isn't going to pay for that. You pay out of pocket, you walk into a LabCorp or a Quest lab and you get the blood test and you get the results. The problem is how do you interpret those? And it's very hard for a lay person, someone who doesn't understand actually what they're doing, to interpret a metabolic blood panel like that.
What role does a dietitian play?
The best way to really know how your body is doing is to hire a nutritionist, particularly one that knows their stuff. It depends on the state that the nutritionist is in, whether or not they can actually run blood work. In the state of California, I can. In other states, registered dietitians can't. They have to get it from their doctor. So no matter what, it's always good to see a registered dietitian or a certified nutrition specialist so that you can kind of get a snapshot of what your health looks like. And so even if we partner with a doctor who can run the lab work for us, we can actually still read that lab work and know what it means and look at that as empirical data of where your body stands now. That's one part of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle is, how do you feel? If your blood work looks great, but you feel crappy, something's wrong, and we need to look at why. So that's something that we are trained to do, is to look at what you're complaining about, and particularly for certified nutrition specialists, when we hear you complain about certain symptoms or certain things, we know in our minds how all of your body systems work together and where that might possibly be coming from. And if it's something that particular nutritionist it doesn't specialize in, lucky for us, we know a lot of nutritionists. And so we know what nutritionists specialize in that thing, and we can send you to them. So I think the point is just have somebody who knows and understands personalized nutrition take a look at you.
And I have people, ask me constantly, is it true that it's 80% diet, 20% physical activity? I don't believe in that. I think that those are your three components right there, is your emotional state of being, your physical state of being, using and being active and productive, and then your nutrition, what you take in from this world. If you have those three things working in synchronicity together, then you're gonna flourish. And if one gets off a little bit, don't be so hard on yourself. You can choose at any moment to change it. It doesn't have to be a Monday or January 1st or, once you identify it, go and fix it, or take the steps to at least educate yourself enough so that when you're ready, you can go back and do that. For me, it's a life changer.
And this is I think the key to losing weight is it's not going to happen in a day. It's not going to happen in a month. It's going to happen over time. So just be consistent in your behaviors and your workouts and your eating, and you'll be fine.
When I was training for the Olympics, I was eating a lot of calories, about 7,000 calories total, because I was training 8 hours a day and I was losing thousands of calories, and I had to keep my body weight up. So I was eating high protein, very high carbohydrate, a lot of complex carbohydrates for energy, and also a moderate amount of fat. And I was not eating it to look good. I was eating for performance. When I was with the WWE, I ate for looks. I wanted to look good. I wanted to look cut. I wanted to look ripped. So I would eat high protein, low carbohydrate, and low fat. And I wasn't worried about health benefits. I wasn't worried about which vitamins and minerals I was taking or what kind of oils I was taking for my skin or for my body. I didn't worry about that, probably because I was young and I didn't have to worry about that long term. But when I was in the WWE, I was eating for looks. And when I was with in the Olympics, I was eating for performance. That is my story, and I'm sticking to it.
How important is working out?
All of us have, our weak moments, but I would say that, really, if you are having a craving, find out what, for instance, for a long time, I always craved sweet food at night, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me, I really didn't want to find out. I just wanted my ice cream bars at night, But I believe that I did find the culprit, and that was, again, a mineral deficiency. Being athletic, following those fads of low fat and low this and low that and zero sugar and etc. is I wasn't listening to my body anymore. I was trying to fit into a macro profile, and I was really starving myself of certain nutrients. So actually it's very interesting, but as I became more relaxed as far as trying to be in that cookie cutter, those cravings actually kind of went away because I would let myself enjoy them in the morning time. And I'm not saying go have chocolate bars in the morning instead of at night, but I'm saying during the day, if you are craving something, why not listen to yourself, have an apple, and you may actually find that at night you don't really crave as much, as those things. So as we spoke earlier, making sure you have those 60 minerals a day, those 12 vitamins, so on and so forth. If we make sure that we're getting them through the day, at nighttime we're not going to be scavenger hunting through our cabinets, looking to satisfy that craving. So I really think it comes down to having a good supply of minerals, vitamins, water, and fulfilling yourself throughout the day.
The secret is don't allow food to be your God. You have to have discipline, and you have to move your body. You just have to. But the thing is you got to learn to do it the right way. And I think too many people watch the internet. There's so many philosophies out there. And I just break it down. This is it. I think you have to be careful. If you're overweight, every time you open your dang mouth, there's a problem. Because every time you open your mouth and you eat something, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a donut. I don't care if it's a steak. You're so unhealthy that your body is going to take that food, it's going to take that sugar, which is huge in your bloodstream, and it's going to start dumping insulin. But too much insulin. So basically heavy people, they have a problem that too much insulin is driving the sugar into the cells, which it needs to, but those cells are so jacked up, they're not taking it. So where does the excess sugar go? Fat. So I just don't open my mouth as much. So I tell people, look, stop snacking. Literally, if you ate 3 square meals a day and that's it without snacking, you'd probably lose weight. Me, I only eat 2 meals a day, and they're smart meals, high protein. Yes, now I'm eating more. I'm big, a little bit higher fat because that satiates you. A lot of protein. Yes, I'm trying to get my vegetables in, but I'll even have a little pastas now, but not a lot. And now, because my stomach's so small, what's nice about my situation and where I have an advantage is, remember, my stomach's small, but it can stretch out. But all I do is I fast for a day and it comes back small.
It's clear that the choices we make every day play a crucial role in our overall well-being. From ancient wisdom to modern science, the importance of a balanced diet and healthy lifestyle has always been important. Good health isn't just about living longer, it's about living better, with energy, joy, and resilience. Remember, the path to a healthier life is made up of small, consistent steps. By nourishing our bodies with the right foods and staying active, we lay the foundation for a vibrant, fulfilling future.